Well, hi, folks. It's Ed Vaughn with Keller Williams and the Transition Living Real Estate Team here with another installment of Frequently Asked Questions. Today I'm going to cover the second half of the lower level details of the buying process. So we're going to pick it up where we left off last time and start from where we're under contract up until closing. So I recorded two other videos on the buying process. One is a high-level view of the buying process that covers the entire buying process, and then the other one is the first half of this segment, which is from getting pre-approved for a loan up until the point you're writing offers. So again, we're starting at when you go under contract, and really from this point forward, what we're dealing with are dates and deadlines. When the offer is written, various dates and deadlines are written in as part of that offer. And once the seller accepts that offer, signs that offer, it becomes a binding contract for both parties. One of the first dates deadline that we need to address is the earnest money check delivery, earnest money delivery date, which is usually a couple days after we go under contract. So when you write the offer, you're basically just sending the seller a picture of your check. And then when you go under contract, I will pick up the physical check and take it to the title company and get a receipt. The title company will store that in escrow for the duration of the contract. The next date that we need to be concerned about is the loan application date. And so you have filled out a loan application as part of the pre-approval process. However, once there's a contract and there's a property address, the mortgage broker will want you to sign another loan application that has that address as part of the application. And again, that's usually about 2 days after you go under contract. The third thing that happens in the first 2 days is the seller's property disclosure. The seller should provide the buyer with this 6-page document that the state provides. This document basically itemizes all the different pieces, parts of the home, and the seller should tell the buyer what they know about the condition of the home. So in other words, if the basement flooded 6 years ago, they should be telling the buyer that and what they did to fix the problem. The seller is not obligated by law to provide this document, and so if you get under contract and the seller says they're not going to provide this, that's a giant red flag that you should seriously consider about terminating the contract and moving on before you spend any money on inspections and so forth down the road. You just might want to say, hey, if he's not willing to tell me what's going on, then I probably don't want to go down this path any further. But that's a case-by-case basis. It's all how you feel at the time kind of thing. And we can certainly talk about that if that happens. So speaking of inspections, so that's pretty much the largest date, if you will, in the contract. You have typically about 10 days to get an inspection completed and an inspection objection sent over to the seller. So you're going to choose to do various kinds of inspections. You'll probably almost always choose to do a general inspection where you'll hire an inspector to come over for 3 or 4 hours and just go through the home with a fine-tooth comb and make sure everything's operating efficiently and operating at all. And other inspections that you might choose to do is a sewer scope inspection, radon, test your basement air for radon in the basement. Lead paint is another inspection you could choose to do. Many different kinds of inspections that you could choose to do. Most people just choose to do the general, the radon, and the sewer scope. But anyhow, once you get your inspection reports back, you will present the seller with a list of items that you would like fixed prior to you purchasing the home. In this market, buyers are advised to keep their inspection items to safety and health concerns or just functional failure of major appliances or systems within the home. If the furnace isn't functioning correctly, that's a safety issue really, but you should expect the seller to take care of it. But general maintenance issues such as the backyard gate not latching properly is not something you would expect a seller to resolve in this seller's market. Another deadline that might be applicable to your situation is a contingent sale deadline. So if you need to sell your home before you can come up with the funds to purchase this home, so you need part of your proceeds of a sale to go towards your down payment to purchase this home, you would have a contingent sale deadline written into the contract, and usually that date will coincide with the closing date so that you know at the closing table that you have sold your home before you buy this one. Other dates, there's some documents that the sellers should make sure get to you. The first set of those docs are title docs, and so the seller is going to contract with a title company to provide title insurance, clear title to you, the buyer, and the title company will present the title commitment documents, and that will contain any liens that are present on the home and whether or not they're going to be cured as part of the sale, any encumbrances, right-of-ways that other people might have to the property would be disclosed at that point. So they have about a week to present those docs to you, and then you get about 2 or 3, 4 days to review those docs and object to anything you might find in them. And if something comes up with in an objection, you would the seller would have 3 days to resolve those issues, and if it cannot be resolved, then you would be able to terminate the contract and get your earnest money back. And I don't think I mentioned that on inspection. Once you've presented the seller with the inspection objection list, the seller then will present you with an inspection resolution outlining which of those inspection objection items are going to fix and which they might not. And you guys would have 3 days to come up with a meeting of the minds there, a resolution. And if you can do that, then the resolution will be signed. If not, then you, as the buyer, would have the option to terminate the contract and get your earnest money back. The other set of docs that the seller is responsible to get to you, if there's an HOA association involved, they will work with the HOA to forward you their bylaws and financial statements. They have about a week to do that, and then you get the same 2 to 3 to 4 days to review those documents and file any objections you might have. And again, if you can't come to resolution, you have the right to terminate the contract and get your earnest money back. Appraisal is one of the later things that happen in the contract life cycle. This is something that a lender will certainly insist on, requirement to do. They want to make sure that the home that you're purchasing is worth what they're lending. And so they're going to require that. Typically, the appraisal you'll have until about 2 weeks prior to closing to get that appraisal done. And if the appraisal comes in lower than the contract price, you can then raise an objection and ask the seller to sell you the house at the appraisal price instead of the contract price. And if the seller agrees to do so, or you guys agree to split the difference or whatever that might be, then the contract would move forward. But otherwise, you again would have the right to terminate the contract and get your earnest money back at that point. And finally, then after appraisal's done, the loan can be fully approved, and we get it clear to close from the lender. If that does not happen, there's a loan objection deadline is typically the last deadline in the contract, about a week before closing. And if for whatever reason the funding doesn't happen, or you don't like the terms are not what you expected them to be when you first talked to the mortgage broker, you can then raise the loan objection and terminate the contract and get your money back. So assuming that we get through all these dates and deadlines, and we usually do, we'll close the contract. Right now it's taking up to 45 days to close a deal because appraisals are taking a long time to happen. But anywhere from 30 to 45 days after you go under contract, you should figure on closing. Closings typically happen on a weekday and take about an hour or two to accomplish, depending on how many loans are involved and how many papers are to sign, that kind of thing, how long it takes to get the funding through once everything's signed. So you want to allow an hour or two at the closing table at the title company. So that's it. After that, you would have possession of the property. You would be able to move in, assuming the seller didn't negotiate a post-closing occupancy agreement with you where they rent the home back after closing. You would be able to possess the home right after closing, right after that deed delivery at closing. So if anybody has any questions about any of this, feel free to call as always, and hope all is well with all you, and I look forward to talking to you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.